Hi guys, this is Alan from Measure Square, and I'll be demonstrating how to use our paint calculator. You can see here that we have a list of different calculators to choose from. Let's just go ahead and click on Paint Estimator. So now you can see we have a list of different room shapes to choose from. We have a rectangular shaped room, an L-shaped room, convex and concave shaped rooms too. Below it, you'll see a report summary section that'll display data showing the total area, paint quantity, labor, and cost needed to paint the rooms we plan to have. Let's start by adding a simple rectangular room. You can see that our new room has a default dimension of 20 feet by 12 feet with a height of 9 feet. You can manually change the room dimension by updating the values in the appropriate boxes. For example, let's change the width of this room to 15 feet and the height of the room to 9 feet and 6 inches. You can also resize the room by using your mouse and clicking the edge of the room and dragging it as such. Notice that when I'm dragging the room, the values in the report summary also update to correctly reflect the area, cost, and labor needed for the room. Suppose your room has doors and windows that you don't want to paint over. In this case, simply go to the door input and enter the amount of doors that you would like to exclude, and then do the same for the window input. You can see that the total area of the doors and windows is deducted from the wall area, therefore lowering the total cost of painting this room. Similarly, if you have any trim on your walls that you don't want to paint over, simply check the appropriate box. If you have wall-based molding, then check Exclude Base Trim. If you have ceiling molding, check Exclude Ceiling Trim. You can see that the trim is deducted from the wall area, which will affect the quantity used and the total cost of painting the room. Lastly, when the room was created, you'll notice that the paint job type was marked as interior by default. What this refers to is painting the interior of a room as opposed to the exterior of a room. If I switch to exterior, you'll notice that the paint quantity goes up, as does the price. This is because, generally, exterior painting will use more paint than interior painting. If you're wondering how the doors, windows, base trim, ceiling trim, and paint job type affect the final cost of painting this room, you can find more details in the Advanced Settings tab up here. I'll explain all of that in a little bit. For now, I'll just add another, more complex room, like an L-shaped room. You can see that because this is no longer a simple rectangular shape, you'll need two sets of inputs for the width and length to adjust the size of this room. So for L1, if I wanted a 15-foot wide room, I would change this. And for the L2 portion, if I wanted to make that section longer to, say, 16 feet and 10 inches, I can do that too. I'll go ahead and add more complex shapes so you can see the rest of them. And there you see our convex shape and our concave shaped rooms. These inputs will be exactly the same as with the L-shaped room. Let's go up to the report summary so we can see the total cost of painting all these rooms. First off, you'll see the total wall area that you'll be painting, the ceiling area, and the total area that you'll be painting. This is followed by the amount of paint that you'll be using in gallons, unit price, and the cost of buying that paint. Below, you'll see labor separated by wall and ceiling, so you'll be spending 15.7 hours on the wall and 7.5 hours on the ceiling. And this is the sum of the hours you'll be spending and the unit price if you will be paying someone to do this, and the cost of the labor, followed by the total cost of painting all these rooms, which is the sum of the paint and the labor. Let's move on to the advanced settings. I'll just click up here on Advanced and down drops a whole list of options. The first one, measure system, is set to imperial by default. If you want to, you can switch this to metric, and you can see that it switches feet to meters and gallons to liters. Next, you'll see the options for door width, door height, window width, and window height, which you can use to alter the dimensions of the doors and windows that we were subtracting down here. For trim width, you can see two options, base trim and ceiling trim width. These correspond to their appropriate checkboxes down here. If I wanted to make base trim width wider, it would make the cost go down. Same thing for the ceiling trim width. Labor coverage refers to how much area you can paint in an hour. If I increase this number, the price will go down because it takes less time to paint. Going on to interior coverage and exterior coverage per unit of paint. This refers to the area that each unit of paint can cover. In this case, interior coverage is 400 square feet per gallon. If we change this to 450, you can see that the quantity of paint needed actually goes down, therefore driving the total cost of painting all these rooms down. If you want to change the unit price of paint, simply update the paint price here to whatever amount you want. And likewise for the labor price per hour, you would just update this here like so. And you'll see these updated unit prices reflected in the report summary. One more note about switching between the imperial and metric systems is that these two have their own default value set, so I recommend that if you do switch to a different measurement system, that you check all these values to make sure that they're what you want. Lastly, since it's pretty common to have multiple coats of paint, you can change that number here. For example, we'll change that number to 2 coats of paint, and you'll see that the total cost of painting the rooms doubles. Now let's say that you want to download all of this information onto a document. Well, you can do that when you go down to the bottom of the page and you click on the button, Get Quantity Estimate and Layout. This will download a document in the form of a PDF, so click it and open it, and you can see that there's a copy of the report summary and advanced setting values from the calculator. What's pretty important is that there's a summary breakdown by room which contains information regarding the area, quantity, labor, and total cost breakdown for each room. Below, you can find more detailed information for each room with a visual diagram here and basic information such as the job type, the dimension, the base perimeter, whether or not the trim is excluded from the wall area, which it is in this case, trim areas for both the base molding and ceiling molding, numbers of doors and windows, and also 2 sections for the ceiling and wall, both containing the area, the paint quantity needed, and the labor needed to paint these 2 areas. This is pretty useful for when you want to paint either the ceiling or the wall but not the other. Scrolling down, we can see the other rooms here. And one thing to note is that because this room does not have trim, it does not contain the base trim or ceiling trim areas. And you also notice for the L-shaped room and the convex and concave rooms, the wall height is located here instead because this shape is more complex, so there's no dimension here. Alright folks, I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.